Global Cache was founded in 2002 by Silicon Valley veterans from the IT industry. Our CEO and head product architect is Walt Keller. Robin Ford is our VP of Business Development, and I'm on that team also. We basically focus on IP enabling the IoT market and connectivity products for residential, educational, commercial, and industrial markets. We are open systems based on industry standards. That's really the key to the company. Open systems is really important to us in that we work with everyone, and that's it. It also is why we're a partnering company because we're really nothing without our partners. Our GC100, which is still selling, for it's been on the market for about 12 years, is the first product of its kind. The iTouch products were introduced in 2009, and the Flex, which is new, is the first smart endpoint in all of our products. This is award-winning, but actually all of our product lines have won awards, different awards, including the CEA Mark of Excellence. We have over 1 million units installed in the field, and every time I do this slide, I think the number goes up a little bit more. So that might actually be as high as 1.5 million units installed in the field. Our sales channel is pretty specific. We sell primarily through distributors, with about 50% being domestic and 50% being international. Our distributors sell to dealers, installers, and integrators. We also sell through VARs, and the difference between the distributor and the VAR is that the VAR has a product that works with ours. They sell them as a bundle, they sell them together, but it maintains the Global Cache brand. We have a very robust, detailed OEM program that can be totally turnkey or can be piece by piece. We can give you a out of the box product that is completely yours, internally, externally, including the apps. So if you're interested in that program, you should contact our sales team. Why would you choose us? I think I mentioned that our claim to fame is that we're open. Our architecture is open. We claim our big cornerstone of our technology is that we're open. All of our APIs are public, and we work with everybody. We want to work with everybody. We don't force the integrator, the installer, or even the end user to pick a favorite. They can use what they're comfortable with and still use us. Why do you want us? Choice. We're best of class. There really is no competition as far as cost, and we're future proof. We are definitely scalable. iPod, iPhone, iOS, Linux, IoT, we do it all. And again, we play well with everyone. We are agnostic on the front end. It really doesn't matter what you're using or who you're using. And with that, I am going to pass it on to Brian.
All right, my name is Brian Kurth. I am the support manager here at Global Cache. I'm going to run you through some of the different products specifically and how they work, why you might want to use them, and just a general overview of that. And then after that's done, we'll pass it off to Patrick at AV GUI to show you his control interface and his control application. For the basics, our devices work as a network adapter to electronic devices that are not commonly found that have an IP connection. Our devices all use an IP connection for connectivity that allow you to connect via a control application on a smartphone, a PC, a Mac, that sort of thing. And we try our best to keep it all easy and open and available. Especially now that we're seeing more in the Internet of Things, IoT environment. We are naturally placed in that environment already and have been for some time, even as the buzzword starts to become more popular. That's sort of been our forte right away as far as being able to connect within your local network. We connect infrared, serial, and relay and sensor type applications that have anywhere from your basic home theater and AV equipment to HVAC, lighting, pool security, curtain rods, projector drops, other examples. And within those applications, it is home theater, it is home automation, boardrooms, stadiums, classrooms, basic AV asset management in any of those environments. This is just a nice little graphic of within a home all the things that can be connected. We're seeing, there's a lot of options out there these days. We, as Rusty said, we try to keep it simple on our end, and control system as agnostic. We can work with any of the control systems or control applications. AV GUI, of course, being one of our big partners here that is naturally integrated to us. But we have drivers for lots of other of the control apps and systems out there as well. The first and the original of our products was the GC100. It comes in 4 variations. The GC100-6 is the smallest, with just a single serial port and 3 IR or sensor ports connected via an Ethernet LAN. Then we have the GC100-12, which is 12 inches. These refer to the length of the device, by the way. GC100-12 has 2 serial ports, 3 relay ports, and 6 IR or sensor ports. All that is the same configuration as the GC118 and 18R, the only difference being the overall length of the device, especially with the 18R, that allows it to be rack mountable. It comes with a rack mounting kit, which is nice for your home theater or your other industrial application. Next comes our iTach family. We took the GC100 concept and we decided to modularize it down to the single purpose. So we have an iTach IP2, or this is actually a WF2IR, pictured here with the Wi-Fi antenna and 3 IR or sensor ports available. Well, I'll show you in the next slide. There'll be a picture of all the products, but they allow. We have a serial version and we have a contact closure version that can be either Wi-Fi or Ethernet or power over Ethernet. We also offer a PoE device. There's a picture of all the ones in their native form. So contact closure, infrared or sensor, and serial. So the infrared has three IR outputs, or they can be used as sensor inputs with the proper cable. The serial is an RS-232 DB9 connection, and contact closure is a simple 3 contact closure outputs, simple open or close functionality. Of course, like I already mentioned, they're available in Wi-Fi, Ethernet, or PoE. The latest version of this concept of our products is the Flex. The Flex has there is a Wi-Fi version and an Ethernet version and the PoE version as well. The previous products all used a TCP API interface for to talk to the device. We develop it, we leave it open. It's published, right? So if you have the ability, you can send commands directly to it over the TCP port, and it's how control systems and control applications such as AV GUI do communicate to it. But for the Flex as well, we also introduced the HTTP RESTful API. So different programming languages can talk directly to it as well, not via the TCP port. And that is, of course, that's the progression of programming in general has started going in that direction. So we try to give the developers more options on how to communicate to it and interact with it. But with the Flex is different from the previous products. Is that the base unit here? This is the Wi-Fi version. That's what connects to the network. So you'll get the device on the network, but then depending on what type of cable, we call them FlexLink cables, and we have a number of offerings I'll review in a moment. That depends. That tells you what it's going to do. So there's infrared cables, there's a relay cable, and there's serial different flavors of serial cables that you can plug into the 3.5 millimeter jack here. In this case, this is you can't see the end of the cable, but this is a 3.5 millimeter jack that goes to a DB9 connection for serial. Small footprint. There is a built-in learner, IR learner, into this device here, and on all the iTouch models as well for learning IR codes if you need to. And this uses a basic micro USB power input. So as a sample setup, we have you have the Flex that gets on the network. It communicates to your router. Your application is loaded onto an iPhone or other electronic device that is also communicating via IP to your router, and it is sending commands to the Flex, infrared commands or serial, depending on what you're connected to, and that goes out. And in this case, it's using an IR blaster to send the IR commands that it's looking for, and from the application here directly. So there's a lot of different possible ways to use that within the IR serial and contact closure environment. For setup on the Flex, if it's Wi-Fi, you're going to connect at first via ad hoc network. Then once you're on the ad hoc network, you're connected directly to it with your electronic device. Then you put in the IP or the DHCP settings for your Wi-Fi network, and once those are saved, then the device is connected to your Wi-Fi network. We have a couple applications I will go over later with you. One of the most important, which is iHelp, that allows you to see whether the device is connected to the network. All the devices send out a UDP beacon on port 9131 that have the built-in information on it, and that's what iHelp looks for. So you can see all of the global cache devices that are on your network and either go into the configuration mode with them or check the details or just check the IP address. And basic security, and then the FlexLink cable configuration is done. There is an internal web configuration page, which is how you can connect when you connect via ad hoc and change the settings, or you want to change the cable configuration. This is true for all the devices, the internal web page. And then, of course, within AV GUI, they will be going over their interface with you on the device in a little bit. So the different types of FlexLink cables: single emitter, one blaster, 3-emitter cable three emitters that come into a single 3.5 millimeter jack in here, 2-emitter, one blaster, same design, or a triport cable that will allow you to split out three separate emitters, or 2 emitters plus a blaster, the individual emitters or blasters rather than the ones that are tied together. There's also an RS-232 pictured here for serial. There's a 485 cable now as well that I'll show you a picture of in a little bit. And then we also offer now it's a RS-232 to mini jack, which it goes into the control port that mini TVs have with a 3.5 millimeter connection into the control port, that's allowing for a direct connection from the Flex into the TV control port with a serial connection, which can be useful in certain situations. And then we also have our relay and sensor cable, which has 4 relay outputs, 4 inputs, and I'll show you that more in a minute. This is just a basic connecting via ad hoc. The iTouches also use the ad hoc network for the Wi-Fi. iTouches also use the Wi-Fi network to connect via ad hoc initially, and then get your devices on the network. As I mentioned before, each of them do have built-in web pages for configuration. This is the Flex, this is the iTouch, and this is the GC100. And those are all, you can all navigate to those just via the IP address of the device. Basic infrastructure, similar to what we saw with the Flex. It gets on the network, and then it communicates via either directly with the emitter or through the blaster. using the API commands. For the serial ports, we have, it is a male DB9 connector. Different baud rates depending on the device itself. The Flex has the greatest range there with 300 to 115.2. Hardware flow control and parity, multiple connections at once. You can use multiple devices to control it at the same time. And then this is a photo of the mini jack cable here. And so you can see the one end goes in, this end goes into the Flex, and this end goes into the control port on the other device, usually a TV in most cases. Serial ports, just another example of diagram of the serial ports in use. For the relays, these are the specifications for the relays: 24 volts AC/DC, 500 milliamps. It can be used screen drops, irrigation, security, garage doors. We see a lot of. The GC100-12, 18, and 18R have them. The IP2CC and WF2CC, and then the Flex with the Flex relay and sensor cable all have contact closure options. And for the relay and sensor cable itself, there's a little better picture of it. There are four, they're paired, of course, so 4 connections for relay, 4 connections for either contact closure sensing or voltage sensing. And the relay side, you can do single pull, single throw, single pull, double throw, or double pull, double throw. And of course, uses up the blocks depending on the higher rating, and some basics there on how that works. And then the voltage sensing and contact closure sensing are on this side. If you want to actually be able to sense when the devices or when the electronics has changed a state, and that will send a signal over a certain port back to, so you can use that to know when something has opened or closed directly. And then the same basics, the basic charts, using it to connect up to. There's the relay ports on the GC100-12, and here's is on the IP or the WF2CC in this case. The 485 cable that works with the Flex, another serial variation that's used in. We see this a lot in pools and other pool connections and other industrial uses, which is why we started offering it, and it has these specifications. Infrared is the kind of the mainstay and what got us into this in the first place. We offer really a wide range of infrared options. We do support the higher frequency Bang & Olufsen ranges, up to 32 kilohertz, up to 500 kilohertz. You can select either an individual emitter, this is an older version of one of our emitters right here, that applies directly over the infrared receiver on the end device. So that allows you to stick it right on there, and it communicates directly to it, so you can individually address pieces of equipment. Or here's an older version of our blaster. You use the IR blaster from a greater distance, and you can control multiple devices with the same signal. As long as they're not this exact same type of unit, all infrared signals are slightly different. So we do have support also for connecting into Xantec and Niles and other distribution blocks with a specialized cable called a GC-CGX cable. When dealing with IR, there's a couple different considerations. There are toggled states that have 2 different IR codes that you must see one after the other. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on when you're doing infrared. If it is a toggle type IR code, that trips people up sometimes. We do also offer a free online IR database. We call it the Control Tower. It's at irdb.globalcache.com, and it allows you to download. We have 150,000 codes plus in there, and you can download those for use with the Global Cache devices. and control applications like AV GUI are tied into that naturally and can get the codes or can use the codes from that. A couple other things. So, yeah, sometimes you may have to learn IR codes, especially with HVAC AC units, off-the-shelf type AC units. Those codes are notoriously difficult to learn and to utilize. And yeah, this is just another. This is actually an older chart of how to connect up to IR. Okay, so real quick here, these are our four free utilities that we offer to use with our devices. iHelp, as I mentioned before, that allows you to discover the devices on the network. It also for the iTouch and especially the Flex, you can upgrade the firmware directly from iHelp. So if we make our firmware notifications, you download the latest version of the iHelp and then right-click on it and do upgrade firmware and right from that. So the files are built into it. And it also gives you the different details, the MAC ID, the IP, the hardware version. I'll show you an example of that here after I go through these. And then iTest, you can connect directly to the port of the device for basic commands, the TCP port is port 4998. For the serial port, it's port 4999, or in the case of the GC100 second serial port, it's port 5000. And that through iTest, you can send commands directly to it, bypassing any control system or control app, or just testing out the command that you want to make sure is working properly. This is a great tool to use. And then iLearn is for using the learning diode that's built into the iTouch and the Flex, and then we also have a serial connected learning diode called a GCIRL, where you don't need either of our products to have a learning device with you, but it does use iLearn for to capture the codes. And then iConvert, if you want to convert the code from our basic GC format to GC compressed or hex or JSON format, they can be used with the Flex. I'm going to tab out here, and I'll show you an example of some of these. Let's see. Here's iTest. I had this connected up earlier to one of our. I believe it's an IP2CC I'm connected to. I just put in the IP address, and in this case, I was just doing a basic test on how to find out what the current state of the contact closure is, and that's just get state, and then the module and port number, and I click send, and it tells me here that the state, in this case, I believe is in a closed state. 0, I think, is a closed state, but and it gives a hex format response as well. Disconnect, and then I only connect up again. And always a great just little sanity check. If you're using this, you can connect to iTest and do a get version, and that shows you the current firmware version that the device you're connected to, and that will tell you that you are connected, that the device is responding. It can be a great tool in a few different ways there. You can also send hex directly to it. This is useful if you're connected to a serial port, especially, and you're sending serial commands directly to whatever you're connected to on the other end. Let's find. Okay, this is iConvert. Actually, I'll come back to that. Here's iHelp. And you can see all the devices that we have connected right now on our network. We've got a couple of GC112, 6, a couple iTouch Wi-Fi's, or Flex Wi-Fi's rather, IP2CC, IP2SL, IP2R. It gives me the IP address, the MAC address. If I right-click, I can go to Details. This shows me some of that information, but it also will show me the current firmware, which is important to know what firmware you're on sometimes, especially with the Flex units. And then this is the hardware revision, which may be helpful in some cases. And also right-clicking, we got configure. This takes me to the web page configuration of the device, which I'll show you in a moment. You can also do from here update firmware, and then some other options which are less used. So if we go to configure, So the
I'm doing the best I can, man. I'll be there when I get there.
All right, so somebody has an open mic there. Just make sure you're muted.
I gotta finish this thing up first.
If you can hear me, somebody has an open mic. You were just talking to somebody. You might want to mute yourself. Okay, so for network settings, basically when you're involved in this, you're going to either use DHCP or you can switch to static IP, which will allow you to change the IP address, subnet mask gateway, DNS server, etc. I'm going to keep that as is. And then for the FlexLink cable, you can select an infrared cable, serial, or relay and sensor. So infrared, and then change to serial. You can change the baud rate settings and flow control, etc. And another interesting thing with the serial connection, we do ship an adapter that you'll see a picture of in a little bit for a gender changer. And this will tell you if you're connected via a null mode cable or regular cable, you don't have to change cables. You can use the adapter and you can use the gender changer setting here, and you won't have to change out cables. And then the relay and sensor cable gives you a couple options. So this is a diagram for demonstration only. It doesn't actually move, but it'll show you the current state. And then you can change it to, you got single pull, single throw. If you change it to single pull, double throw, and then double pull, double throw, it shows you what the kind of the layout, and then it shows you the pinout settings you should have on the actual hardware itself as well. Okay, and let's see. Oh yeah, I wanted to go into iLearn briefly. I don't have one set up at the moment, but you can connect to one of the devices. You can change the capture options as far as how you want it captured. The learned code will come up here. You click edit, and it takes it down to the edit view. It does some basic changes to it, and then you can send it again, or you can name it and save it, and then it saves it into this file down here. And we have more tutorials on that on our website. All right. Okay, so that's the basics, and then iConvert just takes that same code and you can change it back and forth to those others. So the control tower IR database we mentioned before, this is what the web page would look like, and you can enter the brand name and select the device, etc. And to find out if it has those codes, and it sends you the code set via your registered email. Free access, you can send up to 5 code sets a day. We do work with, we have drivers for, or within these systems, Control 4, AMX, and Crestron, RTI for some of the control systems. These are the kind of the higher end systems that are out there that a lot of home automation houses use and whatnot. So summary, IP enabled. We do stick to IP for our devices, because it is the most ubiquitous and compatible. We are a simple open architecture API. We try to be flexible, automate anything. That's what we're here for. We want to be your connection to whatever it is that's not on your network. We can get it on your network. Our devices are cost effective, especially in comparison to a lot of the other systems that are out there, and as compatible as we can be, and they're pretty simple to get on the network and use. So I do want to show you one other thing. Well, we have won a number of awards. Okay, so for the resources, I'm going to show you the downloads page real quick, because that is, if you're doing anything with our devices, that has a lot of resources available for you. Let's see, where am I at here? There we go. Okay, so our downloads and docs page, one of the most important pages if you're using our devices, this is where you can download iHelp, see the latest releases, iLearn, iTest, iConvert. There are Mac versions available through one of our third-party partners. Then this takes you to that. APIs, this is where you can see the commands, see how they're laid out for each of the devices. Like I said, the The Flex has both the TCP and the HTTP API, and the iTouch DC100 are both TCP. And then there are some of our sub devices are independent learner, and then we have an IR extender as well that has their own APIs. And then the individual data sheets on the products and the quick start guides. If you're having problems or if you didn't see a quick start guide come with your device, you can come here for it. And a couple extra tutorials down here that we try to iterate on every now and then as well. So I think that about wraps up my end of it. Let me open up audio here again. Patrick, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Brian. I really like that internal crossover option for the relay. That'll be a real time saver out in the field.
Yeah, people definitely have enjoyed that. Thank you. Okay, so it's all yours.
You see my screen now, right?
Yes, I see your screen.
Excellent. So my name is Patrick Murray. In 2005, just a little background first, and then we'll jump into the app. In 2005, I opened a Crestron and AMX programming company called Control House, and our code is running literally all over the world on mega yachts and luxury homes and more conference rooms than I care to remember. I'm a gold certified Crestron programmer, and over the last few years, we started really intensely exploring control with mobile apps and web browsers. So in a traditional control system, let me just change the slide here, you'll have a user interface, a central control processor. So the interface talks to the control processor, and then those commands will be distributed to the end devices. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this configuration. This requires the central processor to have some custom programming, and the user interface also needs to be programmed. This is really good for complex systems or when you need to make the interface look a very specific way. On the con side, you do need to spend some time defining the requirements for your control system because it is freely programmable, which means that you really do need to define those requirements. Otherwise, you won't be sure what you'll be getting on the other end once it's done. So direct IP control means that we take the central control processor out of the equation and the user interface device communicates directly with the end devices. So this is good for BYOD control, where end users bring their own phone or tablet and control the systems with their own device. You could also use it for anything you could use a traditional control system for. With direct IP control, that'll work as well. And then you're working generally in one programming environment to create an app or a web app. Yeah, there may be some delays with App Store distribution and things like that. You have the same requirements. You need to define how the system will work. And it also requires special software and programming skills, just like traditional control systems do. Moving on to AV GUI, it is a direct IP control app. And we work very tightly with Global Cache products for more analog type non-network control, like RS-232, infrared, and relays. And it's a configurable app, which means there's no programming. Everything is done right in the app, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. So we'll move over to the app here. It is a free download in the App Store. It's an iPad app, and if you want to use it for free, just click the X here at the login screen. You just won't be able to save any changes, and you could set up one device. But I have a login here that I'll set up. I'll have to change my password after this webinar. So once I log in, I have a list of all of my systems here. So all these systems are attached to my login. And I'll select the system I set up for this conference. Now, once that system gets loaded, I no longer need the internet to control my system. So the internet is only used to store and recall a configuration or to use the online IR database. For everything else, the internet is not required. So it has a fixed menu structure that we'll go through very quickly. Up here, we have an auxiliary menu where you could log out, select your systems like we just did. We have the administrator view, which is where we set up our devices. and some user management where we can invite other people to access our system. So I'll simply type in an email address here. And as soon as I close the keyboard, an invitation, the app automatically creates an account for that person, sends them an email letting them know they have been invited to use the system, and they also show up here as a user. We could turn on administrator rights for that person, so when they log in, they can make all the changes that I'm going to show you now, or we could turn that off, and then they'll only be able to control the system and not be able to make any changes. And just as easily, we could remove access for that person as well. Under UI settings, we could very quickly change the background color, header, footer, and all of that will get stored in the configuration. We have basically RGB values and an alpha channel. We can also change the logo pretty easily. We just select this button and it will open up the photo library of the iPad. And then we could select one of those images and that will also get stored with our configuration. There's also a few backgrounds to choose from. So there's the concept of system power. So when I press this button here, I'll be able to automate my system. We'll be able to say, turn the projector on, unmute a few microphones and set some volume levels. And then there'll be a delay, which is configurable. And then after the delay, we could also send a few more commands like select an input on the projector, for example. On the bottom here, we have the main menu, which currently only has one item. I'll show you how to extend that in a minute. Here's a power off with a confirmation. We could change all of this text as well. And then at shutdown, we could also automate our system, send some more commands when you say shutdown, and then after that shutdown delay again. So let's jump in here and add a few devices. So we'll give our device a name. And that is just so that we can keep track of it later when we want to assign commands so that we have a friendly name to deal with. Select the manufacturer, we'll take Global Cache. And our projector here is RS-232 controllable. So for a model, we'll take an iTouch Flex with a serial port. And once we select this, we get all of the parameters available for the serial port. In the next update, I'll have to put that in an internal crossover feature in here that I like so much so that you'll be able to do that as well. So one thing to note, if you use the web server of the iTouch Flex to set up these serial settings, the baud rate and such, that AV GUI will change those settings every time it wakes up. So every time AV GUI connects to the iTouch Flex, it will set up the serial port with whatever settings are set here. So we could enter our own commands, and a command consists of a label. So I'll enter a few labels here, and it redraws every time we enter something new. So we'll put in a few labels, and then we'll need to enter the commands. So once we've got those in there, we could enter a command right here. \R is for carriage return, line feed, and \N is for carriage return only. All of this stuff is in the help documents at support.avgui.com. And you could also send a mail to support@avgui.com and we'll help you out if you have any problems. So I typed in the wrong thing here, but I think you all get the idea. Now, the nice thing about this is that it uses a network connection that is just there. So as soon as these commands are there, I can press this test button and that command will be sent to the iTouch Flex at this IP address, which I forgot to enter, of course. So we'll enter in an IP address here. And now we are ready to start testing. No compiling, no uploading, no reboot. It's a simple network connection waiting for us to send something to it. So once we have a few commands set up here, we can start automating our system. So we'll add a new system action for when the system starts. And then we could select any one of the commands that we just created. So when the system starts, we'll send the power on command, add a new action. After the system starts, we will send the input command. And I'll show you in a few minutes how to adjust the delay. So if the projector needs a few minutes to turn on before the input gets selected, we can do that as well. And of course, when the system shuts down, we can do the reverse. So that's serial control using AV GUI with iTouch Flex. We'll add a new device here and call it a Blu-ray. So we'll add an IR device. Let me just open this up here. And we'll name it Blu-ray. And we will take a global cache. And again, we'll use an iTouch Flex, but this time we will choose one with an IR blaster. So we're choosing what setup commands to send to the iTouch Flex, dependent on what cable is connected. So we have the Flex, we have an IR blaster cable connected, we'll select that. And whenever AV GUI connects, it will send the setup commands for the blaster cable. And I have one of those online here. So whenever we choose a global cache IR device, we have options to use the online IR database. So that I could select the device type, the manufacturer, and these commands are being pulled. These options are being pulled down from the internet. So whenever global cache updates that IR database, you're using the actual version here. And as soon as we select a model, AV GUI will pull down all of the infrared codes for that device. You saw the activity indicator, and when those commands are available, it will redraw. And all of these commands are part of our configuration now. So I could log in with another iPad and select this configuration, and those commands will be there for me. And again, we could press the test function, and that command will be sent immediately to the device, no rebooting or anything like that. This comes in really handy when you have an AV receiver and you're not sure how the inputs are labeled. Sometimes they're labeled differently in the command set as they are on front of the device. So you could just run down the inputs here and find out what's connected here really quickly. If you don't need some of these commands, you could just delete them to clean up your configuration a little bit. And if you're feeling really brave, you could actually edit that that command format, but to change the. I've had to do that once to change the repeat codes, but yeah, that's only for the brave. So we'll add another device here to show IR learning. Add a new device. Another global cache. We'll use the same iTouch Flex. And the IR blaster, so we don't get an error. So we are using the same device, but it's being defined as a new device. So it will create a new connection. So we need to keep track of how many connections we're using. For some devices, there's a limit of 8 connections. So if I had 8 connections defined here and I logged in from a second iPad, then things wouldn't be working. Otherwise, the number of iPads is only limited by the hardware in your system. So I'll skip all the IR database stuff here and enter a command name. And this will redraw. Now, as soon as I select the command fields, because it's an IR device, I have a remote in my hand and I'm pointing it at the iTouch Flex. And as soon as I press the command, it shows up right in the app with the format that's needed for all of these parameters here. And again, I could just press test and that command will be sent back out the IR port of the device where I learned it from. So we could do IR learning really quick and easy. And then we could start assigning these commands to some buttons. So that's the administrator view. We also support the relays as well. And you could also create your own commands using a custom TCP/IP client. So you just define the IP address and port, and then you could create your own commands. There are also built-in device drivers. There's a list of those at support.avgui.com for different matrix switchers and some displays and things of that nature. There's a few audio DSPs in there as well. And those are directly in the device. They don't need any internet connection. And you can control some pretty advanced equipment pretty quickly. So to edit the configuration, we press and hold one of these main menu items, and now we're in edit mode. Here in the main menu, we could add as many items as we need to, or we could delete them as necessary as well. And we could edit pretty much everything we need to about that button. We can change the label and call it a Blu-ray. We could turn off the destination view. So whenever that button is pressed, I can either display a list of destinations, so I could do matrix switching, or if I have a codec and I want to send that laptop to the input of the codec, it will be a good idea to leave the destination page turned on, and then that could be selected. We could also select different icons for each state of the button. So we could take the Blu-ray, and then for the pressed state or selected state, we could take a completely different icon if we like, a different image. We'll take the drop shadow one. Under edit appearance, we could change pretty much everything we need to about that button, the border size, radius, color, background color, and even the image color. Normally don't need to do that, but it's there just in case. There are different graphics libraries to choose from. So I could have a completely different look and feel. We'll take that Blu-ray button. So hopefully there's something for everybody there. And moving right along, we can add actions for that button. So whenever that button is selected, I could choose one of the devices I defined in the administrator view, and then choose the command that I'd like to send whenever that button is pressed. So that is the main menu button. We could go here to edit device controls, and now we're editing the page that's shown whenever that main menu item is selected. We can add a button, drag it wherever we like on the screen, and pressing it gives us all the same options as before. We can assign a graphic to it, we can change the label, we could add a status. Some of our device drivers give us real feedback. For example, power on off, what input is selected, or if a picture mute is on or off. And we could also add an action to that. Press and hold, and we create a copy of that button, or drag it off the screen to delete it. So that's pretty handy if you need to do something special, but we want to get up and running really quick. So we'll use this function over here, add new device controls, and that will erase anything we did on that page. And we'll select the Blu-ray here. And because of the way those Blu-ray commands are formatted, we'll get a page, a template for that Blu-ray. And the nice thing about this is that the actions are already assigned. So for all of those buttons there, they each hold a command for that Blu-ray. So in that way, we could get up and running really quick. And of course, we could modify this if we don't need some buttons, or we could add more buttons as needed. Over here, under the power button, we could change all the text for the start page, the shutdown page. All of the button text can be changed. The text color can be changed in case I have a bright background. I can make it dark, or the opposite of that. Here's the power on delay. So if my projector needs 3 minutes to start up, I'll just enter 180 there. The same option for power off. And up here on the auxiliary menu, the only difference is that some of these have fixed functions like user management or UI settings. So if we want to make our own page up there, we'll select type and say device control. And now we could create our own page, the same as we did before for the Blu-ray controls. We have those same options here. So I can make a page here that directly controls the projector power, or a few microphone levels and things like that. Here we have the volume control. Just select the mute button, and then we could select the device. We don't really have an audio device in the system yet, but if we did, we can assign the commands to those buttons. If we're using an audio DSP with one of our drivers, then we'll get a slider here, and we'll have the option to send discrete levels directly to that audio DSP. So you could say when the system starts, set the volume to 70% or ramp the volume to 70%, and then it's shut down. You could do the opposite. So once I exit edit mode, I press and hold one of the main menu items. Now I'm out of edit mode, and all of those changes will be saved to the cloud, and I could log in from any iPad and access the system. So that's basically AV GUI in a nutshell. I'd just like to remind everybody we'll be sending out an email with a special offer probably tomorrow. So just keep an eye on the email account that you used to sign up. Brian?
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, please type them into the chat function there, and we'll do our best to answer them. Nobody? Are we all good? All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for coming. And please contact us directly, either via our support channel at globalcache.com. So I should say support@globalcache.com, or you can contact Patrick for AV GUI at contact@avgui.com. Is that right? Or controlhouse.com?
That's it.
Okay. And we thank you all for coming, and have a good day.